3 billion base pairs of DNA, and we're now approaching 1 million of a cent in 2010, 2011. It took 13 years and $3 billion to sequence the first full human genome. And now it can be done for $10,000 in a month or two, and predict, in the next 5 years, probably $1,000 a week, within a decade, $100 in a day. So what would that mean if you could sequence your entire genome for essentially the cost and time of a cholesterol test? How might genomics expand to be available and used by many people to drive personalized medicine and lots of other applications? Now, this is a video, watch closely. This is the advantages. So this is an octopus that has, there are a lot of interesting biological properties. Let me just reverse this, slow motion, so you can see how its texture and color changes to match the seaweed.
Holy crap.
So why did I show that octopus video? Because it's cool. I'm gonna loosely try to make a linkage that as you alter DNA, there are different biological properties that we can, it's mostly cool. So this next image is not a toaster. This is called the Roche GS Junior, Gene Sequencing Junior. And it's essentially literally a desktop gene sequencer. And you can just imagine how much these are getting miniaturized and how much they're decreasing in cost, such that they become accessible to a much larger audience. Maybe you and I have a little Lexmark DNA sequencer on our home offices. But okay, so great, you can sequence DNA, but how helpful is that if you can't do anything with it? Well, there's a thing called 3D printers or synthesizers, and that's the ability to take something that you have that you essentially designed or sequenced, and then output it or print it. Now, of course, that you figure nobody would have access to except large institutions, but I Googled this last night, DNA printers, and I found the following. Here's an ad. Refurbished DNA synthesizer, excellent condition, call for price. So maybe these things will be available on eBay before you know it. I swear this, I did not make this up. This is one of the first Google results. So today, if you can type, you can be a genetic engineer. And you won't be a particularly good genetic engineer because you don't know what to type yet, but you could be a genetic engineer. And that's really what's driving this level of innovation in genomics. So this is showing a loop of these different technologies because certainly they accelerate on their own, but they also reinforce each other. So as you have advancements in nanotech, it improves your ability to both design data storage and computing as well as do better and more specific genomics. Once you can do better data storage and genomics, then you need artificial intelligence to make sense of this massive amount of data and find patterns. And once you do that, you can find interventions that essentially are at the DNA genomic level and then output them with a 3D printer. So you see how that all works? So let me move on. So putting it into practice, how might these things be applied? Let me show you a few examples. On the left is a sugar cube, and on the right is a football stadium. Ralph Merkle, who's one of the leaders in nanotechnology, gave this example at Singularity University that said, if they solve this scale and design issue in nanotech, in the next 10 to 15 years, they should be able to design molecular data storage in 3 dimensions. And if they solve this, it will allow us to store as much data in something the size of a sugar cube as an entire football stadium filled with CD-ROMs, which is a lot of data. So that's one application. Another, oh, by the way, I thought this is fanciful, and 6 months later I saw this headline, supercomputers will fit a sugar cube, IBM says, within 10 years. So, it's an example of my own linear bias. I heard this example in February of last year, and I thought, it's going to be 20, 30 years off, those researchers and their fanciful ideas. And then I see this headline, a press release from IBM. Next, here's a skinny rat. This is, in the lab, they're working with genetics with animal models, and they've figured out in rats what's called the insulin fat receptor gene. And it's the gene that causes us to hold on to every extra calorie that we take in. And it made a whole lot of sense when we were hunter-gatherers, and there might be, you know, famine or a bad hunting season. Not so much when we're going through the McDonald's drive-thru, right? So on our way to Walmart. So you know, this is when they turn on this gene, literally these rats are able to eat ravenously, not gain weight, which I think is terrific. You know? So the next one, this is Organovo. This is a company that literally creates 3D printers for tissue. So they're able to build organs. They literally started with a Lexmark, or one of those printer cartridges, like an HP inkjet printer cartridge, loaded it with cells, and started printing out vascular tissue that grew together. And now their equipment is being used to start to create different organs like bladders, kidneys, and other things. So, you know, what might this enable in the future? Imagine, you know, how it changed the game. Honey, I've had a hard weekend. I think I'll print a new liver. So this is very interesting as it relates to changing healthcare. This is an image of a brain, a current version of the brain scan. This is another exponential trend. Is you remember, you know, when you have the early digital cameras, the terrible pictures, they're all pixelated. You know, and back then you thought, wow, digital photography would never replace regular film because it's just not good quality and never replace it. So not that many years later, Kodak's nearly, you know, out of business, and everybody has digital cameras. And the reason is it was on this exponential trend of increasing in resolution and decreasing in cost. Likewise, with brain scanning, it's on an exponential trend down in terms of cost, and it's halving in cost every year and doubling in resolution. So we're about, with brain scanning, where we were with digital cameras 10, 15 years ago, such that within the decade, we'll be able to have radically less expensive and more higher resolution brain scans that will enable us to much better understand different cognitive and psychiatric issues and help us think about how to treat them. Now, this is one of the most fanciful ones, my last example, which is, this is the design of a robotic artificial red blood cell. So what does a red blood cell do? It essentially goes around the body and delivers oxygen to the tissues, and it picks up carbon dioxide. So with this design, using nanotech, let's say in the next 10 to 15 years, if they're able to produce this, if you replace 10% of your red blood cells with these artificial red blood cells, you'd be able to do an Olympic sprint flat out for 15 minutes without taking a breath. If you go underwater for 4 hours and not take a breath, you know who's first in line for that? David Blaine. You know? So you know, this really starts to make you think about what's possible in medicine with some of these technologies. So the times they are changing, as I put in my description, and you know, I think we have to think about what the implications might be for some of these technologies, because obviously some of them, you know, they're promising and also a little scary. I mean, but this is a disturbing image, isn't it? I think it's supposed to show the intersection of technology. Let's just move on. So this is so in the background of this slide, you see genetic data, essentially what sequence DNA would look like. So this is going to become your new 600 million digit social security number. So it has very significant privacy implications. And if you think about it, you know, widespread use of gene sequencing, this is going to have, you know, great opportunities for personalized medicine and great risks from a privacy perspective and other perspectives. So I think this will be significantly greater issues and more sensitive issues in terms of managing privacy than email addresses and opt-in and opt-out. You know, I'm not sure of the problem. So so I love this takeoff of the Andy Warhol quote. In the future, everyone will be anonymous for 15 minutes. So here's another example in terms of implications. Do-it-yourself buyout. Out of Harvard, there's a guy named Jason Bovey who founded this group called Do-It-Yourself Buyout, and it now has chapters all over the US. And the premise is basically people tinkering with biology in their garages and in the basements. So it's analogous to, in the background, there's a picture of Jobs and Wozniak in the 70s in their garage working on the Apple computer. What was interesting in the 70s is that it was called the homebrew computing movement. It was the first time in the history of computing that the components of computers became inexpensive enough for people to essentially have access to them, you know, without being an IBM or an academic institution. and be able to work in their computers and tinker with computing. Then they shared their ideas, and then those innovations came out from garages like Steve Jobs, who went on to do some interesting things, and enabled sort of this democratization of computer development. So we're in 1975 in the genomics revolution, when you think about genomics as an IT discipline. And what that means is that people have access to all this equipment and knowledge and can start to tinker with DNA, synthetic life forms, all kinds of things, which again have promise and peril. Can be, release your inner Frankenstein. So just to give you an idea, so how accessible is this? MIT has a program called iGEM, which is a summer competition with high school students, where high school students tinker with DNA and synthetic life forms. So they do things like change the color of rats, take the healthy ingredient from red wine and put it into beer yeast so that hypothetically you could get resveratrol at the keg parties. And it's really amazing how accessible this has become, and essentially how much simpler it becomes for people to do this kind of work. So I'm gonna shout out to Thomas Gatz here. This is from Wired magazine. It's one of these artifacts from the future. It shows a diaper with all kinds of diagnostics on the back of it, which I think is cool. I've got young kids, this is cool. And another example, another Wired picture is this one. I think they said it's like 2025 is this year, but this woman is looking in the mirror in the morning. She has some sort of virus, and it's diagnosing the virus and telling her which one it is and how she should treat it. And on the lower right, there are two purchase options: the more expensive therapy and the less expensive one. She can press her mirror and get that intervention. So what does all this mean to us and our industry? I think we can't know for sure, certainly what's going to happen in 10 years. We just can't know. But I think some things are reasonably predictable. First, an explosion of innovation. Second, continued trend towards miniaturization. Third, decentralization and the ability to print things locally, get surgery and telemedicine locally, bring healthcare out to the patient, and certainly personalization at a level that we've never seen before. And I guess my view is that in the future, we've never been accused of being the fastest in the industry, but in the future, things are going to progress really quickly. And I think that the people in this room really have the skills that will help to communicate to patients in the future. It's fundamentally a digital world, and only more so in the future. So the kind of skills to understand how to personalize, how to deliver content and support to patients and our customers is going to be a fundamentally digital phenomenon, which I think we're certainly well positioned to support.